Hi, my name is Pearl, and today we'll be talking about walkability as a source of transportation. Our question that we're going to be digging into today is, can walkability be improved to become more widespread? Before we begin, I want to establish how not all walkable areas are created equal. Just because a place has a lot of pedestrian routes doesn't mean that it's good quality or that it's safe or a good idea to go there. Just because something has the label of a walking friendly area doesn't mean that that's actually true. So, to give you a more visual aspect of what that looks like, I have here a case study from an Italian university, that's where these photos are from, to show you what a good and bad example would look like. So, in figure 2 on the left, you can see that there are road signs, there are road markings, and it's very obvious. The signs are clear, big yellow patch on the road, you can't miss it. But if you look on the right side of figure 2, there are no signs, there's no markings on the road, it's very vague looking. You can't tell where to start and stop walking, which is very unsafe. Now, if you look on the photo in the left of figure 3, that is the pedestrian routes that are surrounding the campus, and it's regulated by traffic lights, which is good. But if you look on the right side of figure 3, there are no traffic lights. And not only are there no traffic lights, it's a very wide street and the pedestrian route itself is very long, which means that whoever walks there is going to have a longer walk across the street, so they'll be spending more time on the street, and there's a greater chance of an accident happening. So, despite the different levels of quality amidst walkability areas, there is hope to improve the situation for the future. So, in research, there is something new that's coming out that's called the Walkability Compass. So, essentially, what that is, it's a way to look at an area of land and it measures the effectiveness of the walkability. So, how it's doing that is that it's measuring four different indexes to find the walkability quality. It looks like gravity, so that's how close are you going to travel by walking to the stores, schools, cultural establishments, wherever you need to go. It also measures something that they call reach. So, reach is just how integrated or segregated the route can be. It also measures straightness, so that's going to be how the shortest path from one building to another within a 15-minute radius is going to resemble a straight path. And lastly, it measures the population density. Overall, this is just going to confirm the planning standards and how effective they are to achieving a walkable neighborhood. Another approach to help aid walkability would be GIS. You can use 2D or 3D. In this case, we're just going to focus on 3D. In essence, what the GIS is doing is that it's a computer generated street or block. And what's interesting is that it's very spatially accurate. This is meant to mimic a real street, and it's supposed to be very close to the real thing, but virtual. And it measures the street level urban design, and it builds databases, and it uses information that's plugged in from the year the architecture was built, land use, and even business type. And it uses programmed rules to create 3D models. And this can even help one day with planning future cities. In this figure, you can see an example of what this model would look like. And this is in Buffalo, New York. After this New York models were made, it has been extended to other cities. So this new strategy is growing. and it's becoming more common. Another interesting thing about it is that it can calculate a walkability score per street block, and it's based off different factors that are plugged in, like transparency, enclosure, and complexity. And it can create different models depending on whatever you plug in with the different rules that it already has available. Something else that stands out is the fact that it also takes into account what characteristics make a street more walkable. So here are some things that the GIS takes into account when it makes these models. One of them is having a long sight line. So it's being able to see a good distance in front of you. And it's important when you're walking to feel that you're not enclosed or trapped and that there's somewhere to go to encourage you to walk. Another thing that the GIS looks at is the proportion of sky visible. If you've ever walked in a bunch of skyscrapers, you'll notice that you can't see the sky much because the buildings are blocking everything around you. So, having some shorter buildings available can help create a sense of openness because you can see more sky around you. Something unexpected is the fact that it looks at street trees. And it also looks at not just the fact that there are street trees available, but different heights of street trees. And it takes into account tall trees, short trees, different heights to see how different they really are. It also looks at building identifiers, so something to make one building unique, interesting to look at. It also takes into account the building colors. It can make a difference if you're walking in a city with everything very monotone versus a colorful place. That's what makes tourist attractions special, because things are brightly colored and it makes things more interesting. And last but not least, the GIS also takes into account the windows. What are the windows like? If you've been window shopping before, you would know that the windows are actually an important part of the building because it gives you something to do, to look at, and to make the walk more interesting. And it keeps you walking on the street longer. It would be a good time to bring up our question of, can walkability be improved to become more widespread? We can dig into this some more, into some pros and cons. In the end of the day, walking is helpful, but it's not a complete solution. We cannot walk everywhere. It's just not realistic. Think of the people that live in food deserts. They might have to take several buses just to find the nearest grocery store and then carry their groceries all the way back home. This is not very sustainable or realistic. Think about family. A lot of us don't even live in the same city as our families, or even the same state, or even the same country. We can't always walk to see them. There comes a point when you need a car or a train or a bus or a plane. Even thinking about work. In this day and age, we don't even work in the same city that we live anymore. We drive out. We can't walk 2 hours to work and then 2 hours back home every day. It just wouldn't be realistic. Also, improving one characteristic of walkability can end up impairing another thing that would help walkability. It can become a big picture issue when we improve one thing to try and help things become more walkable, when in reality we can be harming other things. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Walkability can help combat with our car-dependent society. With the whole issue with greenhouse gases, even though walkability won't completely solve the problem, we are helping and we are making things better for the environment. Walkability can also help regreen the environment, especially with cities, because if we're walking around more, we're more likely to have trees and plants be added to the cities and have nature become integrated with the city. More parks, more natural land reserves, more plants on the sides of the streets or in the middle of the streets. And we can help the environment, the urban environment, become a greener place. Walk, Walking around can also help redistribute space, and it can also help us to adopt more mixed use strategies of letting go of this car dependent society where we all depend on cars, and we can change current cities to become more walker friendly. Overall, walkability can definitely become improved, and we're already making steps to improve it, and it can definitely become more widespread. It's already happening and spreading to different cities. It's just a matter of us, the people, valuing it so that the urban planners can actually do something about it. Walkability is a very important issue, and it's something that is very understated in society and not often talked about because we're just so dependent on cars to get around. And with generations of people living in a country like ours in America, people forget that walking to places is an option. So, walkability is something that definitely needs more awareness to grow, but it's a great idea and we're headed in the right direction with its growth. Here's my works cited. Thank you so much for listening.